Most anime are 12 episodes. 12 episodes is not a lot of time to construct everything you may want out of a character. A specific example that comes to mind is the change to Uzuki Hirokawa's arc in Bunny Girl Senpai Season 2. Because of another restriction due to time, they didn't add an aspect of her book that's kind of important. That's two of the girls graduating. As I mentioned in my video about it, this affects her arc by not adding the extra depth of fear from all parties involved. And that's common with these kinds of things. 12 episodes is a very short amount of time to cover a material, so this affects stories that have this depth. Often more subtle parts of a story can be skipped because the viewer already gets the gist. Back to Zuki. They understand what's going through her head enough with all the pieces available, so there wasn't a need to cut yet another character. I've spoken at length about Sakuta's changing characterization through media, but I haven't really spoken about why. Sakuta's personality is a difficult thing to translate to a 13-episode anime. Not only because they would have to give him extra screen time, but every single conversation drags on longer with him being as talky as he is. So it's very obvious why a studio would make these changes. If you didn't catch it, it's money. They don't have money, so they don't have time. What does that mean? Well, in all popular anime, that may or may not have a higher depth than the source material, will be slightly simplified to fit their time frame, or their episode count as I have got written on my script that you cannot see. The more episodes they have, the more stuff they have to cover, so the same problem arises. This kind of caused people to be unable to see complex development in a character, and understand it, because they cannot understand why a character hasn't moved on. Because every time they watch a show 5-6 years ago, a character would have their moment, have their scene, have their episode, and that would be it. They'd be done. And that's not all anime, but a lot of them. Those characters typically weren't focused on again. Some never. I'm thinking of you. You know who I'm talking about. So when we get a complex character like Denji, albeit he is the main character, the author is called a multitude of things, and Denji is called a stupid gooner, even though his changes and promises were made during a stable time in his life, and the majority of his life isn't stable. But I'm giving these people the benefit of the doubt. I'm blaming the system, because that's what I believe. I believe it's the system. Everything is simplified so it can be fed to us. So what does it look like when a show decides to show change like this? Well, you get a 2012 hit anime. We get season 1 of Love, Chuunibyou, and Other Delusions. Yes, I'm here yapping about my favourite show instead of the anime I'm supposed to be. Anyway, Rika Takanashi is handled exceptionally well by the writers of this season. Her Chuunibyou is clearly a love letter to her own personality, and the existing lore she could put together from Yuta's chuuni actions. When she is forced to be a normal girl, she's absolutely caged. She's awkward and apologetic. Bits and pieces of her character comes through, but always shut down by that voice telling her that everything she is doing is wrong. When she is dragged back to herself by her boyfriend Yuta Togashi, she doesn't stay without the eye patch despite her facing what was making her keep it on. She stared down a cop car chasing them and did pretend attacks as they raced off on Makoto Ishiki's bike. Her change has begun. She faced her trauma and finally said goodbye to her father. And that's where we end. I mean, we do have a whole other episode with her in the eye patch, but as far as the story goes, it ends there. She is allowed to do this slowly, which we aren't given until the movie. Fuck season 2. How would you feel if I told you that almost every single one of the books in the Rascal Does Not Dream series ends like that? With a promise of change and a first big step, and then they are left to their own devices. Not a single person is fully fixed and fully perfect when their book is over. Let's go down the line real quick. Mai has multiple instances of her being anxious past her book. Koga keeps a crush on Sakuta way down the line, and is still Laplace's demon 2 years later. Futaba is consistently doing little diets based off Sakuta's remarks, and continued to dress modestly way past her book. Nodoka is completely fine as far as we know, but she's still a little bit of a siscon. Panda Kaede almost finished her list but died, and Kanji Kaede still has issues socially to this day that will likely never fully disappear. The reverse groomer had literal years to get over that shit, so she's fine. Sakuta is our next topic. We haven't known the other girls for long enough to get a proper report out of them. Their entire character arcs are about finding out what's wrong so they can fix it slowly, and what seems like massive growth can just mean the first step for these girls. Let's take Koga as an example. Tomoe has this big showing of resetting time back to the present, which may seem like she's stopped overthinking everything and has finally accepted that she can change herself, but not every aspect of life, especially other people's feelings. Whereas her returning to the present was simply her adolescent syndrome finding the best solution for the future, where because she found out that information in a future simulation, she doesn't need to go through those events again. Like, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying she didn't change as a person. She knows she shouldn't be doing it. And for as long as she's quantumly entangled with Sakuta, she doesn't. But she can't help it sometimes. And in her more recent appearance, it's clear she's made some strides and has gotten over her crush. Maybe, probably. Talking about that crush, Sakuta is absolutely the staple of this version of change. Forcing the anime to focus on it by making it an entire arc is a very baller move, but also making it a major part of the second movie is very important. Sakuta has two major events in his life that he mentions or impacts him in every book. The first is the incident in junior high, and the second one is when Mai got hit by a car, and arguably they both affect him on the same level. Yeah, I understand that might cause some backlash. She is the most important person to him in the books, but her death was reversible, and he didn't even remember it for most of his life in this universe. However, it's just a reminder of his failure. The other one resulted in his family being torn apart. Extreme growth as a person, forcing him to look after a whole other person, having to go through his own bullying. Years later, watching that person you looked after for years disappear and be replaced by the person you lost years prior. And all the emotions that came with every step and stage of this situation. So basically, he had to just watch his sister disappear and then replace his other sister who will never come back. So yeah, he can't stop that one. Let's talk about how these specifically affected him. Sakuta's change from the junior high incident is very clear. His absolute bitterness to anyone who is disrespectful is a clear response to how he was treated back in junior high. It's no tolerance. This man has made his life his own, only reliant on his dad's money to pay most of the rent. He will not be asking for help. However, whenever he sees someone who needs it, he is clearly intrigued and is always willing to help. This is clear by him seeing adolescent syndrome in Mai and immediately trying to help at every opportunity. These characteristics are shown mostly with his response to Koga and Doka. With Koga, he only helped after she responded in a similar way to his sister, when he realized it wasn't an absolutely selfish request. With Nodoka, he treats her almost harshly, and also scolds Mai, but then absolutely solving the situation when she is in actual danger. His other main character traits are also likely in response to how he was treated in junior high. His crassness is an actual way he acts, but it's almost pushed to 120% to push people away. I know this because all of these traits are completely mellowed out by the time his university stint comes around. Getting back onto the title of the video, this shows the writer's trust in you. They trust that you can see that he's changed, because his change is real. He's way less crass, and he uses it in more structured jokes, like his poop joke, which is a kid's joke. The joke not being the fact that it's poop, the joke being that he just said a poop joke at the good old age of 20 years old, 19 I think actually. He's no longer aggressive to anyone, a result of both him growing softer the further away from the event, and that no one's a prick. This is shown best in book 11, and I'm assuming season 2, episode 7. Did Sakuta ever get over the events at junior high? No, we have never had closure for that. Sakuta's only book was the closure on his mummy issues, and with the book before that showing that the event with his sister is mostly done with. She's on her way to growing past those events, so he's good on her part of it. His family grew closer over the time skip too, so all the family aspects of his life were solved, but never how he was affected. The story even hides it in a way. Every time he talks about it, he is either always talking about how badly his sister was affected, or that his family falling apart made him run away, emotionally, not physically, but also physically. And that's part of his growth, being able to admit that this affected him to this degree. Hell, even Mai knew about it before we did. If you were smart, obviously you would have seen that he would have been ruined mentally by his classmates' reactions. But because of what I said earlier, we are used to simplified stories. Why should a character be hurt by multiple aspects of an event when one can suffice? When this event is at least 5 different hardships on him. He never thought about it because why would he want to? He moved away. He didn't see another classmate until he disappeared to another universe. When faced with his entire class, he becomes crass, he becomes aggressively rude, he becomes the him they made him. The him that built everything he has, but break down valid relationships he could have had. Maybe if we were lucky, we would have got more Saki screen time. And he hadn't changed since they had made him this way. Sakuta is flawed, just like any other character in this series. He doesn't face his demons until they threaten to stab someone at the junior high reunion. But it doesn't mean he never took steps. He had to become the head of a household, had to look after a teenage girl, had to grow to trust again, had to grow to be kinder, had to build his group, had to comfort his sister when she returned, had to accept his feelings about his mother, had to take action to bring their relationship back, and had to keep moving, as he himself once said.
It's simple, really. You eat breakfast, you go to school, you sit in class, shoot the with your friends, spend time with someone you love, go to work, take a bath, brush your teeth, and go to bed. You might have some nights where you remember the bad stuff and you're up all night, you can't breathe and you're tossing and turning and you fall asleep somewhere along the way and wake up feeling like trash. But you eat breakfast and go to school anyway.
Sakuta changes. Everyone in this series is in the process of change. They are teenagers and young adults. They do not change immediately. They aren't perfect. But all Bunny Girl Senpai says, or Rascal does not dream, is that all you need to do is take that first step. To give your people a shoulder to cry on, someone to rely on, and to help them reach that first step. That is what Sakuta does. Much like Chuunibyou's take on Rika Takanashi's Mourning, the first step is all we need to see to understand they are ready to take the road ahead. Sakuta's road ahead was years ago now, high school, but it's still going on now. He's still on that road. He may never fully get over the events at junior high, but we know he did a damn good job getting over the hospitalization incident. Just 2 heads on that hydra that was his 3rd year of junior high. But he will keep it trucking. He will keep it moving. And we should too. Just keep it moving.